Hello, everyone. My name is Stanley St. Rose, and today we're going to be talking about The Chosen, written by Chaim Potok. Now, before I go into the summary and explanation of this novel, please remember to leave a like, subscribe, and/or comment so that the channel can continue to grow and so I know to keep making more videos. Now, this novel is very interesting. It focuses on into, on two individuals who are best friends. The first one, his name is Danny Saunders, and his best friend is Reuven Malter. In the beginning of the novel, we're introduced to them in a baseball game that's very heated up, and Danny Saunders is very good, and he is doing something that's most people are not happy with. He's when they pitch him the ball, he's hitting it in a way where he's trying to hit people's heads with the ball. And a lot of kids they move out the way so that they don't get hit, but they're not happy about this. Now there is some tension in the air. The air is very thick. The reason why it's because Danny Saunders is from a Hasidic Jewish community, and the other team is from a modern Orthodox Jewish community. So it's two communities with their baseball teams, and they're not really quite happy with the Hasidic community is not quite happy with what the modern Orthodox Jewish community is doing. So we have this baseball game, and tensions are high, and we see Reuven. He's playing hard. At this point, the game is very intense, and everybody's trying to win. Reuven goes to pitch the ball. He pitches it at Danny Saunders, who's ready to hit the ball. So Reuven throws the ball, and it's a curve ball, and Danny Saunders hits it in a way to go straight for Reuven's head. And Reuven doesn't move out the way. He tries to catch it, but it's too fast. It hits him directly in the head. It smashes his glasses. A piece of glass from the glasses actually damages his eye, and it's stuck in there. They sit him down for the rest of the game, and later they rush him to the hospital. Danny Saunders' team ends up winning the game 8-7. So next we see Reuven. He's at the hospital. They perform surgery on his eye. They remove the glass, but there is a little bit. It's kind of scary because there is a possibility that Reuven could lose sight in that eye, and that he could lose that eye. So he in this moment at the hospital, he kind of loses. He kind of realizes that he's not invincible, and I think that's very important because every kid at some point in their lives they realize that you're not invincible, you can't live forever, and that you're very fragile. So for Reuven, that was the moment that he realized you know life's not perfect and his body can succumb to many different things. In the hospital, he's near this little boy by the name of Billy, who's totally blind. There's a grown man on the other bed next to him, who's half blind. One of his eyes have been taken out. So he's kind of like near these two people that have lost sight in one way or another, and he realizes that he got really close to being in the same table as them. So at first there was that scare that he could have been blind, but he does regain his full vision. The doctor who operated on him operated very well, and they were able to move the glass out of his eyes, and he does regain back his vision. While he's at the hospital, there's some things that are revealed to him. First of all, Danny Saunders comes to visit him. At first, he sent him home, but after a conversation with his dad, Reuven realizes that because of their culture, because of their religion, they're supposed to be open to forgiving people who come to ask for forgiveness. So Reuven does forgive Danny Saunders, and that begins their relationship as best friends. The other thing that's revealed to Reuven is that Danny Saunders has been reading behind his father's back. Now, Danny Saunders is the son of Rabbi Saunders, and Reb Saunders he's a Hasidic leader, and he's very strict. He follows Jewish law to a T. He doesn't want his son to be reading these texts. And at first, and by now they're best friends. They get along very well. And at first, um, they were sneaking around, going to the library, and reading all types of books. It's revealed that Reuven's father, David Malter, is has been suggesting books to Danny Saunders, which is pretty much goes against Reb Saunders' beliefs. So David Malter, excuse me, he does feel guilty about suggesting books to Danny, but he does say that he does justify it by saying that if he doesn't do this, that Danny Saunders could have gone on his own and read um, all types of books that could have thrown him away from his Jewish faith. So Danny and Reuven, they continue being friends. The kids at both of their schools are a little bit surprised of this, but after a little while they get used to it. So Danny and Reuven, they become best friends. And Reb Saunders, he he understands that this is happening. So before that day, he can allow Danny to be friends with Reuven completely. He invites Reuven to his service or to his synagogue, and they have a service. They go, they a lot of prayers. They pray and they go through their traditions, and then this public display of knowledge that goes on, and where Reb Saunders publicly quizzes Danny about the Talmud, and he quizzes him on specific passages, specific texts, and they go back and forth. And if Danny makes a mistake, it's very embarrassing. Danny does make a mistake. There's a question he does fail on, but Reuven was able to answer it, which looks good on Ruben's part. Reuven, not Ruben. Reuven, sorry. So Dave, Danny and Reuven, they remain best friends, and they keep going to the library. Um, Danny studies several different things. Later, Daniel reveals to Reuven that he doesn't want to be a rabbi, and that's expected of him. His father expects him to be a rabbi. His father has been in a family that has a long line of generations, a long line of people, and in each generation, somebody from the family, a male, has taken up the mantle and carried on being a rabbi, and so that's what Saunders expected from his son, but he doesn't know that wants nothing to do with continuing that tradition. So Danny goes after school. He goes with his best friend Reuven. They study. It comes to the point where Danny Saunders is studying German. He's reading Sigmund Freud. He realizes that he wants to be a psychologist. The crazy thing is that Reuven, he wants to be a rabbi, but his best friend doesn't. Danny doesn't. So it's really interesting, that factor. So sooner or later, Reb Saunders does figure out that Danny is reading things that he's not particularly happy with. So one day, when Reuven comes over to study, and comes over to study, and they're talking about the Talmud, they're kind of studying it too, and Danny leaves the room. Reb Saunders questions Reuven, and Reuven tells him the truth about Danny, and that Danny has been reading texts that he wouldn't particularly approve of. So he takes this information. He doesn't say anything about it. He allows Danny to keep reading these texts without saying a word. He doesn't interrupt him because he fears that if he takes this reading away from Danny, and becomes even more strict on him, that might push Danny away to the point where he doesn't even want to be a part of the Hasidic, um, part of Jewish, the Hasidic part of the religion anymore. So what happens is, um, Danny and Reuven, they continue being friends, and then They eventually become older. Um, Danny Saunders grows to be 5'10", and Reuven grows to be 5'9". They go to college. They go to the same college together. In college, um, Danny keeps studying. He by this point he's extremely into psychology. He wants to be a psychologist. He's not giving that up. Reuven knows that he wants to be a rabbi. He's not giving that up, so they're studying. Um, they're moving on with their lives, and they're the school that they go to, the college that they go to. It's kind of a college that allows you to major in two things. Um, on the one hand, you are studying the Talmud. You're getting more in depth at understanding in what the Talmud is, and on the other hand, you can major in something else. So we see Reuven, he majors in mathematics while also studying the Talmud, and we see Danny Saunders. He's just you know going over um, psychology. He's not stopping full strength with psychology. The fact of the matter is, uh, Danny Saunders has a photographic memory. He knows his Talmud front to back, back to front. So there's not really that much you can teach him about the Talmud. He knows it by heart. So they go to college together, and here's another dark turn. This whole book, while it's being while the narrative is going on, we know that World War II is happening. In the novel, all of the characters know that World War II is taking place at the same time. David Malter, who is of course Reuven's father, he wants there to be a secular Jewish state, and Reb Saunders um, does not agree with this. And because of these two fathers having a difference in opinion, Reb Saunders puts a ban on Danny and Reuven's relationship, and they can no longer speak to each other. In their hearts and in their minds, they know that they're still best friends, but they can no longer speak to each other. Danny's father told him that if he is caught speaking to Reuven, that he will take him away from college and he will never go back to college again, which would take away his psychology aspiration. So now keep in mind, Reb Saunders has now revealed to Danny that he knows about his psychology dream. He's actually never said that to anybody yet. So the boys are banned from speaking to each other. They're best friends, but they can't speak to each other. They actually spend 2 years apart of not speaking to each other. They each carry on with their lives. But later, what happens is, it's pretty much clear that the Jewish state is going to exist, even if Reb Saunders doesn't want a secular Jewish state. He really wanted a state that focuses on the Jewish law, strict Jewish law. If that state was going to be a strict Jewish law state, he would be for it. But the fact that it's going to be secular, he wasn't with that. So, after 2 years and the secular Jewish state exists, we know Israel, um, you know, Reb Saunders sees that he can't win this, so he lifts the ban and he allows Danny Saunders and Reuven to be friends again. They become friends again. By this point, they're pretty much done with college. They graduate, and Danny is just at this point where he's just trying to figure out how to reveal to his father that he doesn't want to be a rabbi. Um, and Reuven, on the other hand, he knows that he wants to be a rabbi. He's set up everything for himself to be a rabbi. So what happens is we see that Reb Saunders invites Reuven over to his house for several times. Reuven doesn't accept the invitation, but sooner or later, um, David Malter, Reuven's father, forces him or pushes him to go to their house. And then we get this big reveal that Reb Saunders knows that Danny does not want to be a rabbi, and he tells him, "You can go to get your PhD, your doctorate, to be a psychologist. I'm not going to force you to be a rabbi." And Danny, he's surprised. He's like, I, you know, he's completely shocked because he knew that his dad was never going to let him be, anything other than a rabbi. So he's shocked. And he accepts this. He tells us that he's going to still be a member of the community. He's going to follow the laws. He is going to cut his beard, even though his dad's not completely happy about that. He's going to cut his beard, but he's still going to follow the laws. So that takes place, and the rabbi position goes down to Danny Saunders' little brother, and the father says, "Your brother will take the mantle and be the next rabbi in the family." So the book pretty much ends with Danny, pretty much knowing that he's going to go to get his PhD to be a psychologist, and with Reuven pretty much going to be a rabbi. And another thing that's revealed to us, and if we get to the analysis part or in the explanation part, we know that you know Reb Saunders does reveal that in that meeting that he knew that ever since Danny Saunders was like 4 years old, he was not going to be a rabbi because he had such a mind, such a brain for knowledge that a life without constantly absorbing knowledge was not going to fulfill Danny Saunders' heart and his mind. So he kind of recognized that to force him to be a rabbi was just doing himself an injustice and pretty much killing the light from Danny because Danny's heart he just wanted knowledge. He wanted to devour knowledge, and psychology was where his heart was at. And so he said that he told Reuven that he was actually very happy that he came into Danny's life because if it wasn't for Reuven and his father, Danny would probably have gone on and left the Hasidic religion, the Hasidic Jews, part of Judaism because he believes that Danny, while that through that baseball game was just in a dark place, he was just so strict and just felt so constricted from all the rules and from his father dictating his entire life because his father Reb Saunders, he's revealing all of this to us and to Danny and Reuven. He says that I can see what you're thinking. um, he even tells Reuven, I know that you don't like me. And in all truth, Danny's life was just really in a box. His father was going to choose his wife. His father was going to choose his occupation. His father was going to choose everything that he did. And a great mind such as Danny Saunders, because he's extremely intelligent, extremely smart, he didn't want to live in a box. He didn't want his entire life to be dictated by his father. And so the novel ends on a good note with Danny Saunders going off to become a psychologist and Reuven to become a rabbi. So the novel does have a lot to say. I really like that touch in the beginning where Reuven does realize as a human being he's not untouchable, and that death or disease or injury or being crippled can be for anyone or anything. So I think that's a realization that we all go through. We all realize that we are not immortal and that our lives can end or be ruined at any moment. The other thing I think the novel really focuses on is how parents can affect the lives of children. Because Reb Saunders, if he really pushed Danny to that limit, he really could have made Danny a monster. We saw what happened with the baseball, and that all the reason why Danny hit Reuven with the baseball and literally tried to aim for his head is because of all that pressure and all that darkness that he was feeling and all that constriction he was feeling from his father and from his family to be a rabbi, to be something he didn't want to be. So he started to lash out. He started to be angry at someone else. So so parents can affect, and from my perspective, I think parents do determine exactly what their children are going to be, depending on how your parents raise you, and depending on how your parents are in your life. You do end up being the result of how they treat you. If they push you to a limit, if they oppress you, you can end up being a very bitter and angry person. If they treat you with love and compassion, you can, demonstrate those same behaviors. If they treat you as an outcast, you can come to see yourself as an outcast. If they treat you as an equal, you can come to see yourself later and as an adult as an equal. So really, a lot of times in your early years, the things that your parents put into your mind and put into you, they often do play a huge role in who you will become as an adult. And Reb Saunders did realize this. That's why he didn't intervene and stop his son from reading psychology books or all these types of books, because he realized if he did do that, he was going to lose his son. And his silent treatment, his silent way of raising Danny, of not talking to him that much, of just telling him to figure things out for himself, was not really the best method, but that was his method. So that's my interpretation analysis of the novel. I think it has a lot to do with that realization in the beginning, with Reuven and the two, and Billy who was blind and the other man who was half blind. It has to do with what roles parents play in our lives and how they can affect our lives, and how there can be certain conflicts with what we want and what we don't want. And the other thing I think that's very important that the novel touches on is human connection. Because if it wasn't for Reuven and his father coming into Danny's life, his life could have ended up in a very bad road, in a very bad place. And even Reb Saunders admits this. He says that Reuven and his father was the light that guided Danny out of a certain type of darkness that he himself didn't know how to get Danny out of. So that's my explanation, my analysis, my summary of the novel, The Chosen. Um, and I hope you guys like that summary. And actually, wait, before we end this video, let's talk about the title real quick. With the title of this book, the Chosen. I think if we think about that really quickly, that does play a huge role. And the reason why I'm saying that is because um, it's kind of strange that Reuven and his father were chosen somehow miraculously to save Danny. Because you could say from the baseball thing that Reuven should be Danny's mortal enemy. Um, Danny almost took out his eye and made him blind. And for most people, if somebody does that to you, you know, the only thing you could probably think of is revenge and attack. So I think the name of the title, The Children, does play a role in the selection of who Danny's friends who's his best friend is, is pretty much, um, who his best friend is. Um, that's a very interesting thing that's brought to the table. But that's it for me. I'm gonna end this video here. I hope you guys like the summary. I hope that this helped in some way. Please remember to leave a like, subscribe, and or comment, and I'll see you guys in the next video.